almost pre-feminist that character was of Princess Leia. Because, we go to rescue her, she takes over the whole rescue. Give me that. You didn't have a plan. I just loved the banter. It just seemed so human to me that we would risk our lives, freeing her from the Death Star, and she takes a look at the Millennium Falcon and goes, "You came in that." I mean, how human is that? My sisters used to make my dad drop them off a block before we got to high school so none of their friends would see the piece of crap car my dad owned. That's so human, and that's so rare in science fiction. And boy, Carrie just had it all. I mean, she made Luke and Han look like chumps. Grabs our guns, tells us to jump in the garbage chute, and it's, if someone takes a charge like that, you should follow her.
Which, good, we did.
Yes, we did.
You're following in her footsteps, which is also pretty amazing. Speaking of many generations.
To do that, and as usual, she was always 5 steps ahead of me. And she said, "Mark, what kind of parts do they have for women over 50 in Hollywood?" I thought, wow. See, she just cuts right to the chase. It's much harder on women in this business than it is on men. As I get, you see these actors and they have a 28-year-old girlfriend in their 30s, a 28-year-old girlfriend in their 40s and their 50s. And the girlfriend stays the same age as the actor continues. So it's rough. It's a rough business.
Yeah.
I go to acting schools and try and talk the kids out of a career in show business. Because I said, if there's anything else you love, even remotely as much, do that.
Tech.
Because it's a lifetime of rejection and frustration. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with your talent. You're too this, you're too that, you're too tall, you're too small, your eyes are the wrong color. It's really, it's a brutal existence. But
well, and just talking about it, I mean, definitely your mom was a strong female character, and you're now...
She's so grounded beyond her years. Carrie was only 19 when I worked with her. And, that Billie has turned out to be so assertive and so comfortable in her own skin is amazing. And there's a lot of Debbie in her as well. Of Debbie Reynolds.
Dear.
It's true. Well, it's funny when you see Carrie and Debbie together because you go, which one's the mom? Because, Debbie was so optimistic and bouncing and motherly and fixing my collar, and Carrie was kind of shuffling around going, "Mom, leave him alone," But they were very different in their personalities, and it's just wonderful to, like I say, it's generational. And that's why Billie's participation in the trilogy is so important to all of us.
So,
look, I am just so grateful to be doing something that I love. And I think that applies to all of us. I mean, you really have to believe in yourself and the fact that if you can really, I love that quote from Groucho Marx. He said, "Sincerity is the key to success. Once you learn how to fake that, you got it made." And that's kind of cynical, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, I wanted to be in entertainment so badly from such an early age. I loved people. I'm the middle of 7 children, so I think a lot of it was just, sort of survival, trying to get attention. One of the most venerated actors of the 20th century, and an 8-foot-tall dog in headphones flying a spaceship. What's wrong with this picture? I asked Sir Alec, I said, and he said, one time I called him Sir Alec, he sort of tapped my face and then gave me I said, "Hey, what was that for?" "I want to be known by my name, not my accolade." Seriously. He didn't want me to call him Sir. So I said, "Can I call you Big Al?" See, he laughed. He loved the irreverence of American humor. And it took me a while to get comfortable around him because I was so in awe. But, coming back has just been so unexpected. It's like finding, that old pair of trousers you haven't worn in 6 years. You find a $20 bill in the pocket, and you go, "Wow, that's more valuable than the $20 bill in my wallet because I didn't know I had it." That's what it's like. Record collection, everything, all of it. It's so artificial, It's you really have to push the envelope in terms of pretending. And I had that happen all the time, and we didn't see the Death Star. We just said, "Look at the size of that thing, which is a piece of tape on the wall.
So let's talk about, can we talk about the new movie? Maybe? Let's talk
About what now?
the new movie.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Is there anything that you can share with us about it?
Well,
Probably not. No.
Oh, no? Okay.
I taught Mark this concept that I've come up with called the SWPD, the Star Wars Police Department. And they're very formidable and terrifying, and they might come through these doors at any point, so watch your back.
We've already been out. They sent us to Berlin and to London, and I said to the Disney executives, let me get this straight. We're going out to publicize a movie that we're not supposed to talk about. Is that about right? Because they said, well, you'll find something. And,
It's in space.
but I don't like spoilers. I mean, have you ever seen those trailers where you go, they showed us the whole movie, pretty much. I love trying to, I did a movie called Brigsby Bear where the very concept was something that was much more enjoyable if you discovered it for yourself. If we talked about it on, in the press, it would sort of ruin the surprise.
Yeah.
That's tricky because, marketers really want to get the people in the seats. And, it's different for a small film like Brigsby Bear as opposed to something like this, which has a huge anticipation and is going to be seen by a lot of people. That's what was different with the new cast. When we did the first one, I thought it'd be popular, but we were sort of in the eye of the hurricane as it just grew and grew into this pop culture phenomenon. So it happened around us, the new cast members, they knew going in, even if it wasn't well received, it's going to be huge in terms of eyeballs and perception. So that's what's different about it.
Okay, well, I'm a marketer, and I just comment on marketing.
Yeah.
Just trying to get everything out of there. So,
Do you love what you do?
I love what I do.
Oh, good. See, that's
Yes.
half the battle right there.
Yeah, I love what I do. I'm here with you guys, so it's not too shabby.
We'll be the judge of that.
So, okay, I just want to ask. I think that one thing, when I've been preparing for this, something that everyone has asked me is about the phenomenon that this Ray in the movie might be your daughter, and what's the relationship there. And I know you can't tell us anything, but can you tell us anything?
Good poker face, Mark.
I love Jamie is so sweet and sincere. A lot of journalists will say things like, was it difficult picking up and wielding a lightsaber again after all those years? And you go, hey, wait a minute. Do I pick up a lightsaber? So they try and trick you a little bit. But, obviously the Force Awakens sort of set up all the ideas that are going to be explored further in Episode 8. You'll see her hand me that lightsaber.
That's something.
But do I take it?
Come on!
You'll have to wait for 8. And people, what's your first line? Do you have something snarky like, excuse me, that came with a hand, thank you? Did you bring that too? Fans are way ahead of you. The trouble is now, because my son Nathan, he knows more about these films than I do, because I haven't seen it since they were in the movies. And they watch them over and over, and then they read the novels, and they play the games, they read the comic books, and there's so much minutia, because a lot of the times I was totally into it at the time, but once you're finished, you have to flush your memory banks just so you can memorize more lines and other things. So I forget so much. Nathan said, don't tell anyone that you flunked that Star Wars trivia quiz. And it was multiple choice. What was Han Solo smuggling on the Millennium Falcon? I was thinking, well, it must be money or jewels, right? And I chose that. It turns out it was spice. But who remembers these things? I don't. So these kids will get up and ask me a question. When Chewie went to the planet of Kazuzik, and I said, excuse me? I thought he sneezed. No, the planet of Kazuzik. I said, what's that last word? He said, because it's the Wookiee planet. Could you spell that? And it's one of those weird George Lucas words that are desperately in need of more vowels. Like KYZZXQ, or I don't know, it looks like a Scrabble tiles. But I love it because they are so enthusiastic. it's remarkable. They are. People come up and share these stories about how it got me through my mother's illness, or I met my wife online. It's so ingrained in the fabric of pop culture. People have these stories that it's just so amazing that I have anything to do with something that was so meaningful to them. It's impossible to take for granted because it's so remarkable.
Yeah, so just a fun story, but we're at this tech conference. Favorite movie? Do you have a favorite movie? Not
A Hard Day's
Star
Night.
Wars. No.
Oh, not Star Wars?
No, Star Wars. Like, which one's your favorite? If you want to tell us your just favorite movie, that's okay
Well,
too.
it's like saying, well, who's your favorite child? You have to say, well,
Chelsea.
I like them all for different reasons, They all have distinct personalities, and they were very different experiences. Star Wars was the last time we were all three together a lot. I remember on Empire, because I would be going to the Dagobah, the swamp planet, and passing Harry and Harrison going the other way. Because they were off. I mean,
Sorry, I had to.
I gotta stop doing that. Carrie and Harrison, I'm sorry. But it was very lonely on Empire. Get the call sheet, and I was the only human being on the call sheet. It would say, actor Mark Hamill, role Luke Skywalker, and then it was all puppets, robots, lizards, and snakes. So Frank Oz obviously was, and Wendy and Kathy were doing Yoda, but they went into the trench and they covered them up, and I had a little radio mic in my ear, which I discovered, by the way, if you moved in a certain direction, you could pick up radio signals. So I'd be watching Yoda saying, "Many years have I," and all of a sudden the Rolling Stones, "Ooh, Daddy, you're a fool to cry. You're a fool to cry." And then, I laughed the first time, but Irvin later, when I explained to him, I said, "Well, I just picked up the Rolling Stones." He said, "Well, look, because Yoda was such a problem. It was a elaborate puppet, and he was always going up to the workshop to be worked on. In fact, if you ever see me alone in Empire or Over the Shoulder was the dead version. They just needed the back of his head because they'd rushed the mechanical one up for Stuart to work on, Stuart Friedman. But Kirshner said, no matter what you hear, just keep a straight face. And I said, well, how do I know when to come in with my lines? He goes, well, when his mouth stops moving, then you come in with your line. Well, I probably would have figured that out. But, it was a challenge, and like I say, I mean, each one I had a little more with them, with the two of them in Jedi. But like I say, they were all fun, and it's been a long time. I guess when they said they'd done the special edition, they'd goosed up the special effects. I said, oh, great, send me a screener. And my kids freaked out. They'd never seen them in the theaters before. They said, Dad, we got to see it on the big screen. I thought, yeah, we should. So that was 97. And I went and saw them in the theaters again. And with a full audience. What could be better? Yeah. Of Star Wars enthusiasts. It's just amazing.
Well, we're in a room full of Star Wars.
Spiritual with the addition of Yoda, and then have the twist ending that'll never be topped in a million years.
Maybe the next one.
Because
you don't want to talk about that.
They took me aside and they said, because there was a dummy line in the script. He doesn't say, "You don't know the truth." I am your father line. In the script, it said, "You don't know the truth. Obi-Wan killed your father," which is a great twist in and of itself. If Guinness is going to turn out to be the bad guy, so I thought, oh, that's great. Pull me aside. Kirshner did. He says, I know something that George knows, and I'm going to tell you, and that's 3 people that know. So if it leaks, we'll know it's you. Oh, I can't stand the pressure.
That was the
I
origin
talk in
of
my
the
sleep. And then he told me what it was, and I was just gobsmacked. Are you kidding me? I mean, is he? And they said, well, you have to wait for episode whatever it was. But, he says, search your feelings, you know it to be true. And then we decided to play it that way. But, and I loved it too, because by the time Empire came out, there were already spies and people from the press at the pubs waiting for the actors to come in. And it's the false line, within 2 or 3 days after we filmed it, was on the cover of one of the newspapers, a little small article, but it said Guinness head baddie in Star Wars 2, because they didn't know the name of the film yet, and baddie is what they call villains in England. But I was so delighted they leaked fake information, but I couldn't even say anything about that because it was a big secret. Listen, I've got so many secrets in my head about episode 8. I just can't stand it. It's got to come out soon. No. I have a lot of fun on Twitter. I call it teasing, but they call it trolling. But I can't resist. Somebody will tweet you a picture. You go, why are you on the dark side of the poster? So I just have, and I toy with them, and some of them laugh and appreciate it, and some of them call me names I can't repeat in mixed company. Why do you make us suffer this way? I said, I'm just having fun.
Well, we actually can open it up to some Q&A.
Great.
So, does anybody in the audience have
It's probably different for a 5-year-old than it would be for me. I would want to see the films as they were released chronologically. So that would be the original trilogy and then jump back to Phantom Menace. But who knows? I mean, at that age, maybe he'd want to start from the beginning. It's interesting. All kids are different, In Sweden, we got sort of a rating that indicated that it wasn't for small children because of the explosions and the intensity and so forth. But all kids are different, Your kid like a $1 billion addition to Disneyland. I've seen the models and so forth, and I'm really fascinated with the technical side of things, like the way Disneyland is laid out and how they move people. So there's always something arresting, even if you're standing online. There's visual aspects to keep the storyline going. It's just really fascinating to me. I don't think it opens until 2019, but
sounds like there's a reality show in there.
Well,
I don't know.
They shot so much film on the making of Jedi, this last one. I thought, oh my God, this thing could go on for 40 hours.
There's gonna be 6 documentaries.
Everything, Yeah, I went and spoke at a school. They filmed that. I twisted my ankle, which they covered up. Oh, don't let that get out into the press.
No, it was bad. We would be having like really inappropriate, dirty conversations. We turn around.
Yes, they filmed everything. They filmed me getting my ankle taped up. I said, does this really need to be on camera? Do people really want to see this? But every moment is documented. They could probably make a mini-series out if they wanted. But in answer to your question, I was thrilled when they did Star Tours. Can you imagine if you told me as a kid, someday you'll be in a movie that'll be turned into a ride at Disneyland? I mean, really? I used to get more excited about these things. Carrie would just let it roll off her back, and Harrison was whatever.
She loved it. She would make me go on Star Tours with her. I'd be like, Mom, I don't want to go on that shit again.
No, but I don't
want to do that. She's like, come on.
I come bouncing in and go, hey, you guys, our faces are masks on the back of this cereal box. I can't do Harrison, but the look on his face was. Am I supposed to be excited or what? I said, well, I am. That was the balance, I think, because I was telling Billy that Marsha Lucas told us that when they got it down to Luke, Leia, and Han, there were 2 sets, and they never mix and match. It was either Harrison and Carrie and me or 3 other actors. She said, George is packing to go to London to start making the film, where you go over and you don't come back till the film's done. And he still hadn't decided. And she took credit for pushing him in our direction. But you look back and you think, oh my gosh, the chemistry was right. Harrison has that sort of laconic, cynical, and it's a smart move to have a cynical character in the movie. It takes the onus off the more cynical people in the audience. He was there to mock the Force, hokey religions and blah, blah, blah. That put at ease the people that thought it was kind of corny. Because at the time that movie came out, we were at the end of a really difficult period in our history with Vietnam and Watergate and all that. the prevailing heroes were sort of gray area. They were anti-heroes, returning from Vietnam and disillusioned and coming back to unemployment and all that. George had to put it in a galaxy far, far away so he could go back to the sort of clear-cut, the bad guy wears a black hat and the good guy wears a white hat, just that clear definition. And it was smart to put it in a galaxy far, far away because you can get away with anything you want, like big dogs flying spaceships.
No bras in space.
You're not going to see it. Is that what?
No bras in space. That's what George used to always have.
That's based on a true story, because one of the first thing we did was running down the Death Star, and all of a sudden we looked around and we went, where's Carrie? Turned out Wardrobe had pulled her aside. She came back sort of mortified. She said, what happened? They taped me down.
She used to do a competition, she said, for who wants to take off the gaffer's tape off my tits. You can imagine people were clawing at the bit.
Well, that's where it came from, because, I said, well, why didn't you just wear a bra? She said, George said there's no underwear in space. I said, well, I'm breaking that rule right now. People don't realize, in the first film, we were pulling costumes. In other words, now everything's designed for you. But in the first film, Luke's pants were just Levi's bleached out with the pockets cut off. So it had Levi Strauss right on the button in front. What I love, too, is the way on Halloween, kids will come dressed as your character. And some of them look more like me than me. What's that?
I've got 3 bizarre characters people dress as. Now I've got number 3, I've got Connix, and I've got Winter. And it's bizarre. People dress their dogs up like it. It's kind of surreal.
Do animals like costumes?
Animals love costumes.
My
dog loves her wig.
So sad, with these bantha horns on them. But I do. My dogs really enjoyed the attention. I just don't know if they like the confinement of a costume.
My dog only wears Star Wars costumes.
I didn't know we were going to talk about dogs costumes with here. I'm trying to
We got a little diverted. I see a hand right there.
One more question. Or I think he's